and get back into the lecture. So we're beginning to talk about how interactive media, the characteristics it has, and how it changes the whole way of doing marketing communications. So interactive media, really influential here, because this is as much about, sharing of experiences, knowledge and ideas, engagement with brands, people and communities, discovery through searching on websites and linking up with other people, and then playing with games, music, film and blogging. So interactive media then opens the way for all of these activities, all of these very human activities, to be part of the marketing, direct digital marketing campaign tool box. So display advertising, banner ads, really critical. Can be interstitial adverts. Those are the ones that used to come while you were getting bored and waiting for your long download to happen, but have now really been replaced with much more sophisticated rich media advertising. Display advertising, very often, if it's something like a banner ad, it very often could be clickable. So you click through to the banner to get through to your own website as well. So I had to buy a new watch the other day, and I'm still getting lots and lots of pictures of watches come up. And if you click on them, of course, you get taken to the manufacturer's website or the place where you can buy them online, and then you're through. So that is measured by looking at your click-through rate, the number of people that would click on your banner and then click through and actually visit your website as a result. So is in some ways quite a reliable way of looking at how genuinely interested people are with in your products and services. And of course, your displaying, where you display your advert is absolutely critical, because a new development is much more about contextual advertising than it is about sheer numbers. So now you're thinking about using behavioral targeting. So I think when the internet first came along, and particularly when mobile phone marketing came along, the game was to play, do you realize how many people you can reach? It's hundreds of thousands. But those marketeers came from a world where they were playing the readership game, whereby it was really important that, I don't know, the Financial Times or the Daily Mail or your newspaper sold as many copies as possible, so that you could generate as much advertising revenue as possible. And the advertisers themselves were really thinking about going to numbers, where actually the big thing, of course, about using mobile phone advertising and marketing in particular is that it can be really contextual, is that you can stick up a picture of a watch in a news story that might have something about, I don't know, a company that makes watches, or about telling the time or something like that. So you can give it real context. And that way, the argument goes, it doesn't matter about how many people you're getting to, because that could be quite wasteful. What you're doing here is you're getting to a smaller number of people, but they're going to be interested because they've already searched for buying watches online, and they're now reading an article about watchmaking or something that's relevant to watches. And so by giving it the context, that you're refining your targeting of your marketing and your e-communications. And it all comes from this, really, from native advertising and pop-ups. So native advertising is advertising that's formatted, built for being used, particularly on a smartphone or a tablet, and is often called transitional online advertising. So you're going from one thing to the next, and this will be like a pop-up. This will pop up in between. It's those really annoying adverts that get in the way. But it follows various forms, in terms of having a headline, a brand, and then a function where you can click through to some other part of your website and to take the reader further. But other forms, of course, are available. So things like, online video that pops up for you, attachment of advertising, native advertising to games and for gamers and gaming, and any kind of rich media advert, and by that you mean something where you have some control over the images that might flick across, or to enlarge them, or to see a part of an image, or to jump forward. So rich media adverts are ones where the user has a little bit of control over how they might be seen. One of the big game changers, of course, is search engine marketing, which is when you can use AdWords and Google Analytics, and you're thinking therefore about pay-per-click services as well. So you're going to Google and you're asking them about how their algorithm works, and you're beginning to use those AdWords, those words that you know that they use in their pre-prepared searches, so that you can use them in your website and make sure that they come up in their searches. And then of course you can bid for that as well. So the whole thing is that Google is collecting information all the time about who you are and your behavior as a user, and then they're using that big data to send on to advertisers to make sure that advertisers are constantly kept updated about the latest positions that they might adopt in getting to a certain group of people, what words they might use, and all of that is up for auction of bidding. And then of course you've got the rise, haven't you, of specialist agencies which will actually kind of broker those deals for you, so that your search engine optimization is a big thing, of course, when it comes to e-communications marketing. And might simply be about an organic search, which is normal display marketing. It might be about where you fall on the page position. As you say, you can pay for higher ranking positions in the page. So you do a basic search and then it comes up at the top, doesn't it, with sponsored links. And then you get to the people that you feel like you have a little bit more control over. But where you rank in that search engine page, on that Google display page, is of course, essentially how much you buy into the algorithms and what kind of money you spend in ensuring that position. And then of course using, key phrases and online content and title tags and meta tags and all those other things to optimize your search engine marketing. And then of course we come to social media marketing. So lots and lots of different elements to that as well. Thinking not just about which social networks it is, but also about how they're used, with things like weblogs and podcasting, microblogging, which essentially is Twitter, and the communities that those individual platforms support. And thinking now about the building blocks. This is based on this work by Kreitzman, which is in the textbook in Phil and Turnbull. And they're saying that all of these issues are the building blocks of social media, deciding who you are, what conversations you have, who you're sharing them with, what kind of relationships you're establishing with your customers, and therefore how you can build your brand reputation and develop other networks to continue with your presence as well. And they say there are 4 C's in a framework which is about how you should be thinking about using social marketing: by being concise, by being congruous, which is when basically that you have everything that you have is in line with your potential viewers, that you curate, that you build up collections of material to use in social media marketing, and you chase. Anytime you get a contact, you make sure that you follow that through. And that's why social media marketing isn't necessarily cheap, because if companies, and they've finally got used to not using social media marketing as a one-way message, companies finally have realized that social media marketing is essential and only works if it's a two-way thing. But of course you need somebody sitting behind a computer, just as the business school does, if you're going to continually update your platforms. If somebody sends you a question and you don't reply to it, you're dead in the water. So with social media, it's a two-way thing, and therefore you have to put some resources into supporting your social media platforms at your end. So you need somebody, as there is somebody at the business school, who's actually, replying to messages, sending out material, using all the social media platforms that the business school subscribes to, and keeping that information fresh and updated. because that co-creation only goes so far. You need basically to begin to send out some of your own information to get your success stories out there. So some examples of social media here, and this table is really plotting them out in terms of the size of the producer population. So if you like the platform and the size of the platform, small, medium, large, and then the size of the consumers that might be using that platform, what size populations there are. So for instance, personal messaging is very small, isn't it? Very small producer, very small population receiver. But you go to some of the bigger platforms like the Twitter homepage, and suddenly you're dealing with a much bigger, wider platform group. But even though the number of people that are actually consuming your social media, your information, could still be small. But when it gets to large, you get into areas like Facebook and YouTube, and when you get very large platforms, then you're into, you know, multiplayer online gaming and things like that, where you're talking about very, very large numbers of consumers at one time. And this table looks a little bit about whether the information needs to be done synchronously or asynchronously, and they talk about that in lectures, don't they? Asynchronous being something that's recorded, and synchronous is what we're doing now. So something which is occupying a real-time shared canvas, if you like, some kind of platform where you're sharing the information in real time. And you can think about then the granularity of control you have over that, and how virtual reality enables you to get down to be part of a much smaller community. And then if you're doing something like texting or chatting, actually that's in real time, and then it's a community of one, isn't it? Where you're part of a much bigger community. It's synchronous, but the granularity of control is that you can contact another tweet, another poster of another comment, like the Financial Times, another Twitter user, and actually contact them on a one-to-one basis. So your granularity of control is very fine indeed. So social media penetration in Europe is quite interesting, is that if you look at the kind of 4 big platforms here, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, this table's a little bit old, but if you look that Facebook is, you know, by far and away the largest of all of those. In the UK, it accounts for, or a few years ago, accounted for 50% of all social media users, and across Europe as a whole was about, what, just over a quarter. Twitter, look, had its places big in the UK, also in Turkey. Is Twitter still big in Turkey? It is, yeah? Is that just a quirk of fate, or just something that...
It's about politics.
Is it?
Yeah.
Go on then. Are you allowed to explain?
Yeah, it's about politics, like politics on Twitter, that's why they use it.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of we have like, we don't have war in Turkey, but our border like has a war, so that's why it's
Unrest. Yeah, okay. And it's to send information out about those kinds of issues, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad things.
Okay. What, sending disinformation out? Saying everything's fine?
Yeah, most of time like government work Twitter for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't like use.
Okay. Yep. Okay, that's quite interesting. Thank you for saying that. What else have we got? Other anomalies in there? Does anybody want to talk about their own country? It's interesting. Look, not that many places use those 4 platforms. The UK and Holland is amongst the only ones. Look, Switzerland doesn't have a Twitter sphere, and neither did Italy a few years ago, but I bet it does now. So social media penetration, pretty big in most countries. Look, Facebook up here, top of the tree, then YouTube, then WhatsApp, then Instagram, then WeChat, then Tumblr, TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, and MySpace. But they all do very different jobs, don't they, really? They all do very different jobs. And I'm never quite sure I understand why WhatsApp really is listed as being a social media site, when to me it just seems much more of a sort of messaging thing.
Because what you write is used in advertising, so because it's owned by Facebook, that's to whatever your message about was
What, because Facebook now own it?
Yeah.
But it only recently bought it, didn't it?
Yeah.
So, and before then? I can only think that WhatsApp was valuable, simply as you say, because the numbers of users that you had and the amount of information that was accessible to you just from the subscribers. Yeah. Right, so thinking particularly about Twitter, tweets and tweeting. So format here was about being a promoted tweet, which would be paid by a company, or celebrity paid, sometimes referred to as a sponsored tweet. This approach involves a brand paying a celebrity to tweet on their behalf through the use of hashtags at the end of the tweet, followed by the name of a group. The message discloses that the message is an advert. Each sponsored tweet can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And then you have all celebrity organic, which involves a celebrity tweeting about a brand voluntarily and without competition. Although this incurs no cost to the brand and there is low control and high risk, as the brand has no influence over the association with the celebrity tweeter. So essentially, tweets can carry monetization. And that was one of the things I think that was in the BBC commentary on Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, is that he might go to having a subscription level. So he might then think about not purely relying on advertising revenue to support Twitter, but going to a subscription model where you actually pay to be a Twitter subscriber and to be part of that community. So tweets and tweeting, lots of different ways in which it can be monetized. And these examples are how companies will use celebrities to promote their ways. So different sorts, that gives rise to different sorts of community segments as well. So everything from insiders, strong social ties to other members of the community, so you feel like you're part of a group. Devotees, because you identify with the product which is about the subject of the tweet. Minglers are other people but don't have strong associations, but like the idea of being part of the community and will move in and out. And tourists who don't have any particular ties and will just will dip in and out of the community as they please. So lots of different sorts of virtual community, if you like, hanging on tweets. And of course, you have to rethink the ADA model as well. So instead of it being about simply attracting awareness and ending up with action, you now got several stages to get to where you're trying to get, a buzz going, some kind of, information, a blog, a buzz, a search going about your product or service, which leads to other people to move into doing more research, which allows you then to build in, social networks into that information building, and then groups talking about it, that co-creation thing, where communities are talking about your products and services, and then going to likes, and where people are recommending the nice things you say about your products and services, and then you going into recreating that buzz at the end of it as well. So that funnel becomes a little bit more of a loop. So instead of creating, attention and desire, you're creating all of this idea of where other people are doing the work for you. Your customers are doing that work in helping you to co-create that and to spread the word about how amazing your brand is. Interactive media has other forms as well. Just think about, basic text messaging, emails, augmented reality as well, of course, affiliate marketing, which is when you're working in partnership with other sites, and with just things like widgets as well, which can carry, all of which can carry promotional forms as well. Apps, of course, is big, isn't it, for mobile phones and for tablets. And companies will use apps a lot in creating a marketing opportunity as well, because they have high campaign ones have high brand value, but little everyday utility. So they're campaign-based apps. Then you think about popular gimmick apps, which are kind of characterized with low brand value, not very useful, but they'll support a short-term campaign or event. So the app might have a very short life and just be about some kind of special offer or campaign that's running at the moment. Then you have an app which will serve as a kind of everyday tool. So like a location finder, or what are the other ones? Currency converters, recipe, menu directories, those kind of things. So that again can carry promotions and advertising with it. And they're called straight utility apps, and then branded utility apps. So these are apps which are both useful and develop the brand promise, considered to be the most powerful types of mobile apps, simply because engagement occurs through the functionality which is tied to the essential value of the brand. So can you think of an example of that for me? I mean, Financial Times app that I've just used, that's really functional. I get to read the newspaper as a result. And, you know, it's a pretty functional app for me to pick up on news. What else? Anybody got any suggestions to make of their own apps, which are kind of branded utility apps? Apps you've got to have in order to kind of enjoy that brand to the full. I mean, look,
Design app
for
website design and UX design.
oh, okay, for website design.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for brand logo maker.
Oh, okay. And I'm thinking about things like, I mean, if you like, you would use, oh, I don't know, like GPS, like Garmin or something like that. So you buy your device and then you would have an app, wouldn't you, on the phone? You can buy your OS map. So you buy a map. Don't you? If you don't like Google Maps and the amount of detail of the day, you buy an OS map, and then you buy a map. You buy an app that goes with the map, and it can kind of log where you've walked or where you've cycled and things like that. It's brilliant. So there are lots and lots of apps. And the most useful ones are the ones which you have to use as part of the brand. Think about, I mean, every time you buy a television now or a mobile phone, every device you buy comes with its own app, doesn't it, to start up. But, of course, loads of things can go wrong. So lots and lots of different types of fraud here. So adware, which is software which sees a user's activity and redirects them to another marketing link. So you basically hijack that click through. Cookie stuffing, which are pages designed to repeatedly attract traffic to particular merchants. If a user makes a purchase from that merchant within a predetermined time, the affiliate is credited. So basically, your interest in a particular website is hijacked by another website with this cookie stuffing. Typo stuffing, which is when you set up a domain name that has a typo, that has an error in the way that it's spelled, so that when the user misspells a merchant's domain name in the way that you have guessed as a fraudulent affiliate, then it's directed to your fraudulent site as well. So you're taking somebody's domain name, you're changing it in the way that might be spelled incorrectly, and then you're hijacking that as well. That's called typo stuffing. And then loyalty software, which is the placement of loyalty software on a user's computer to remind them about possible rebates, points, or other benefits from purchasing through certain merchants. So when a user requests the merchant's site directly, the loyalty software automatically sends them to a fraudulent affiliate's website. So again, another way of catching loyal customers and hijacking them to your own fraudulent website. So lots and lots of things that can go wrong there, and lots and lots of things about the rise of influencers as well. So couldn't help but deal with the kind of influencing world as well, with blogging and vlogging and things like that, and looking at how people turn to their favorite, Instagram, Twitter stars, personalities and YouTubers for advice, recommendations, because these things are, carry a huge amount of advertising and marketing potential, but they're obviously, again, open to, aren't they, abuse. So social media has given normal people an opportunity to build their own brand through stimulating content and engagement. And greater levels of trust exist than for traditional celebrities, so attracts younger customers. So your YouTuber is now a celebrity. And in fact, the old PewDiePie, I think, is still reckoned to be the top income earner of all the influencers, really. So this guy is a Swedish social media influencer, and he's followed just about every game that I think is worth playing, and he will give you a commentary on it. And he's generated 120 million followers across all 4 platforms. That's quite something, really. This is Zoe Sugg. So I think she's one of the top UK influencers as well. So she's a fashion and beauty blogger from England. At the young age of 19, Sugg started a fashion blog that turned into a YouTube channel, and she has since garnered nearly 40 million fans across her social channels. And I wonder if that information has been updated by this as well. So thinking about social media for influencers, thinking about how effective this is, thinking about the limitations of this for you as an advertiser and as a marketeer, there's lots and lots of things going on here. And I don't know what you think about this, but it's really interesting to see that across the world, this website reckons that the biggest number of followers is of any influencer or celebrity blogger is held by Cristiano Ronaldo at 417 million, followed by Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, Selena Gomez. Who we got there? 5 is Taylor Swift. Then 6 is Dwayne Johnson, who I think is he an actor? Is that right? Yep. Then 7 is Katy Perry. Then 8 is Kylie Jenner. 9's Rihanna. 10 is Kim Kardashian. So I don't know. Does somebody want to say something about that? Do you think that's all okay? What do you think? Is it okay? I don't know. Is there something? Is it okay that Cristiano Ronaldo can be more than just a footballer and, make or create huge amounts of revenue for the brands that he's willing to? Does it not matter? Does he earn that right as a talented footballer? Does he earn that right to have that kind of influence on the world, or is that something the way the world works now and we have to put up with it? It can go wrong. In the UK, the Competition and Markets Authority is still hanging back here because this is years old, this story. Influencers, including Zoella Ellie Goulding and Alexa Chung, have committed to clearly disclosing whether they've been paid to mention a product or service, and even whether it's been gifted them for free. The move follows an investigation by the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, which has claimed that if influencer bloggers fail to comply, they could face legal action. So what they're suggesting is that posters should make it very clear, say if they endorse a certain brand of, perfume or makeup or something like that, they should make it very clear that they've been given the perfume and makeup for free. And actually, they've been given a very large amount of money to be able to endorse that product, because I'm guessing in the early days, a lot of people were naive enough to think that these were their personal preferences and that no money would change his hands. Well, now that they know that a huge amount of money changes hands, in the UK, the Competition and Markets Authority have suggested that it should be regulated. But I think even now, it's still a voluntary thing. So influencers, of course, can lose a lot of reputation if they're found to have been paid a huge amount of money to promote something, because it takes away the credibility of what their advice, doesn't it? But so they're now, but they're not obliged to do it by law still, and they have to play a reputation game, don't they? Where they have to go, well, if I'm found out, it will cost me this much in reputation. But on the other hand, if I'm not, I'm going to carry this amount of, income from promoting this product without necessarily telling people that it's part of a paid advertising offering. But that's not to say that all celebrity blogging blogs and influencers are all bad, of course, because they make up a massive part of what is the e-communications and the social media world. When it comes to measuring effectiveness, though, you do need to think about some different tools as well, because you need to think about the difference between just plonking a display advert up and how often it's actually seen, with how often people might click through or interact with your advert, and the number of times then they might browse your website as a result, and therefore the final, high level engagement. So you need to think about at what level you really want to measure your engagement with your potential customers as well. And again, for website effectiveness as well, you need to think about the different sort of dimensions of performance. Is this about a kind of relationship you have with your customers? Is it purely based upon transaction, or is it giving them more information? Is it allowing them to navigate other parts of your offering? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Is it traffic? Is it understanding of visitor profile? Is it the kind of actually generating more sales? Is it about customer after sales service? What is it you're trying to do? So website effectiveness needs its own way of measuring effectiveness, aside from other forms of advertising and media in general. And all of these two last items are drawn from the DePel's Macca book. So we're done. So we can finish 5 minutes early, if that's okay with you. Are there any questions at all? Any questions at home at all? Okay, I'll stop the recording.